Welcome to day 281 of the 300 Movie Challenge. Today we watched the highest grossing film of October 2017, which was Blade Runner 2049.
Okay, so I said last time that this was this was one of the two films that I said I was the most interested in seeing.
Mm.
Now, since we talked about that, I don't know, a week or so ago, and we did that before, um, I saw the original.
Mm.
And I was so part of the reason I was excited to see this is because I know that the original was this big science fiction classic kind of movie that everyone really liked, and that this was a sequel that is just as good, right? And so that was kind of why I was really excited to see it. Um, but I hadn't seen the original, so I'd seen the original now before watching this, and it was made in 1982, so I have to keep it with that in mind, and the visuals, especially considering it was made in 1982 for the original, were really good. They still look pretty damn good. So the visuals are good, and the soundtrack is really interesting in terms of the original. Um, but I just I just feel like people are gonna kill me for saying this, but I didn't really care for what was going on in the original. Like, it was fine. Like, the characters were fine, the plot was fine, but I really just didn't get invested. And even though it's like a 2-hour movie, it's really slow, which I could see some people liking, and at some points it is kind of nice to soak in again kind of the atmosphere, but at least for that movie, I just felt like I was just kind of I was honestly bored for a decent chunk of that movie, which sucks because again, the visuals are really nice and there are some interesting themes that are there, but I just wish I cared more about the specific characters and stuff so then I could be interested in the theming. So I overall was positive on it, but mostly because of from a visual and perspective, right? So then after seeing the original, I was like, oh shit, am I gonna not like the sequel now? And especially because I'm the sequel's 45 minutes longer. Is this even worse in terms of being slow? And so I was then that's why I said before, I was now I'm kind of apprehensive coming into this. Short answer is I like it more than the original. I'm still not 100% sure how much more though.
Would you say that they're similar in pacing?
Yes. Again, so this is the weird thing where this is 45 minutes longer, but it feels roughly the same. It feels longer, but in the sense of I know that it is a longer movie, not that it felt like it took longer to get through its story. Does that kind of make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess what you're saying is that they took the original and kind of improved upon some things and stuff?
Yeah, so okay, so the visuals for this now okay, the first movie is I believe entirely in the Los Angeles kind of city. Okay?
Okay.
And so here in this movie it basically looks the same as it did before, right? And there's some of the effects of some of the advertisement kind of hologram stuff is better, and the whole AI hologram thing in the apartment is new, so that wasn't there, right? But the overall look and style is the same basically.
Okay.
So at first when it was just kind of focused on that, I was there's not really a really interesting visual angle to this that's really impressing me. But then what they did is they went to other places. And so especially when they were in Las Vegas, apparently the orange place was apparently Las Vegas.
That was okay.
Yeah. That was okay, this is new. This is a very interesting kind of again visual setting with the orange and the really especially when outside there's the statues or whatever that are kind of falling over and stuff.
Yeah, those were interesting.
Yeah, so that was that part especially. I was okay, this is really nice visually. Also the whole the room, the water room where the head guy of the company was or whatever.
Yeah, that was really cool
that
too.
was nice. So yeah, basically I especially liked this visually when it did different things than the original. Speaking of different things, the hologram lady, um,
Joy?
yeah, and like especially like where she's like with like the other woman like together and like kind of you see like both of their hands kind of moving and it was like that was really cool. So I like that visually too. Um, so yeah, that visual aspect was nice, and then the soundtrack is the same kind of soundtrack. So and again, it's weird, but it's like I like it.
I was going to say too. I think the thing that actually stood out with I enjoyed the visuals, everything too, especially with how they used colors and stuff. And
Yeah.
like you said, orange, Valen, and we immediately knew where you were talking about, basically,
Yeah.
which is pretty impressive, especially for like a visual medium and stuff like movies and stuff, because you could say orange, and for a lot of other movies, it could be a lot of different things, basically. But for them to like focus on certain colors and everything it's a really nice touch, and it helps with the atmosphere. And then the soundtrack also, I admit in the beginning I wasn't too sure how I felt about it, but as it kept going, I actually really enjoyed the soundtrack and everything. And I think it works a lot with this film also.
Yeah, so those I would say both of those are well, the soundtrack is basically the same. Okay, so it's
Oh, is it?
yeah, it's pretty much the exact. Like honestly, if you told me, yeah, they literally just reused the soundtrack from the original, I would believe that, and like I would be fine with that. Like I honestly, I don't think they did, but like that's how it feels, right? So, so that's good. And then the visuals, yeah, I think especially part of it just in terms of it's like 35 years later, so it's going to look a bit nicer in general. But again,
Right,
yeah, especially
yeah.
the color stuff with like Las Vegas and like some other things, it's just that was nice. And I do like the story and characters more, but I don't like love them. I think like because before I would say story characters that maybe was like neutral, if not maybe slightly negative in terms of like that's mostly because of the pacing in terms of the original. This I'm gonna say slight like kind of leaning positive, but again I'm still not 100% sure exactly how much I feel about the characters and the story and stuff. Actually, I was wondering, since you guys didn't see the original, was there anything that, like you were kind of confused about or couldn't follow?
It seems like besides the background about the replicants and that whole deal, it seems like everything else was kind of new.
Well, so the main thing is Decker, Harrison Ford, and
Yeah.
the Rachel replicant. Like their story was what was going on in the original.
Okay.
But they didn't really like formally get into a relationship until like the very end. But yeah, so like for example, there was a couple scenes where like they were. I think at one point like there was audio played of like you could hear like Deckard and Rachel like talking to each other or something. That was just straight from the original movie.
Oh, okay.
So and yes, there's a few moments of that. But and again, just like the overall like visual style, and again all of that, especially in like the Los Angeles area, that was all the same basically. So you could say that was like kind of introduced. That visual style was introduced. The only thing, yeah, I guess a little bit of the backstory in terms of like overall the world, a little bit, but even then not a ton. Again, it was mostly around the replicants, but even then it wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like I was lost by just going to this by itself. So I think they did a pretty good job with just establishing things in the beginning, because they were talking a bit about like the case,
Yeah.
with the baby and the, I guess, Rachel in a box. And then
the other thing too is that in the very beginning, I guess in like a Star Wars fashion, they kind of had the text written out for you and stuff.
That also helped.
Yeah. So it kind of was like, okay, so this is like the bare basics of this world that you should know before going into it and stuff, and now we'll proceed with the story. So that was also very helpful.
Yeah, because I always watch this and I'm like, I think you guys would follow this fine, but just kind of
Yeah.
thinking. Yeah, 'cause pretty much again, pretty anything that like actually happens in this movie is pretty self-contained in terms of like, you know, there isn't like, wait, why did this character do this or something like that? You know, it's nothing like that. So,
I guess considering this is a sequel made many, many years after the original, they kind of had to go this route. Otherwise, like, if someone was just like, oh, this seems like a cool sci-fi movie, let's go watch it, and then they'd be like, I don't understand anything, then that'd be bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, by now people at least have heard of Blade Runner and then, like, roughly have some idea of what it is in, like, terms of, like, a genre, and so... Because I know, like, this movie actually didn't make that much money, it's just nothing else in October made more money, which is nice, because I like it, well, at least, you know, we didn't see some just random garbage or whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think... I don't remember the overall number, but anyway, so because I think there's actually the original Blade Runner like didn't make that much money either, so I think it maybe people were overestimating like how much of like a following the original has in terms of making this one. I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely I don't know. I'm still not exactly sure where I fall on this in terms of how I think about it, so.
Harrison Ford, like, all his characters, when he shows up again in the future and stuff, all his children are just, like, he has to like, find them or something terrible has happened to them.
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of kind of character similarities between him in this and in The Force Awakens.
Yeah, it's actually kind of sad. Like, when I saw him, I was just like, that's really sad.
Yeah, it's like, oh, your daughter is in basically a self-contained room and stuff, and then your wife, and then it's like with Han Solo where he was with Kylo Ren and everything.
Yeah, he's
at least he got a somewhat happier ending.
Yeah,
he's
become the bitter old man.
He's alive.
Yeah.
That's a big plus.
Yeah. I do I'm still, like, again, there's a few things where I'm like, do I like this or do I not in terms of the plot? Like, for example, the end where he was saying, oh, you know, I like, it seemed like you died and, like, it seemed like you drowned, right? So they wouldn't look for you. And I'm like, I just, based on who that guy, again, the head of the company or whatever, I'm like, I think he would look harder than just be like, oh, he drowned, okay, and just kind of give up. You know what I mean? So it's like, but is that a bad thing? Because I know that there's like possibilities for, you know, continuing on for other ones later, and so
I guess they kind of left it open ended for that. So
there's some stuff like that, and again, like how the first one ended with basically Rachel and Deckard kind of like leaving together to go away. So it's kind of like it's saying there could be more stuff. Well, it's also like here how, for example, like did he like die at the end?
That's what I was thinking, because I was like, that scene was actually really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Wikipedia specifically doesn't say, right? So, you know, there's stuff like that where it's like, maybe? I don't know, so...
I hope he's just sleeping with his eyes open, because...
yeah.
That's really sad, because he, like, went through all that, he thought he was the son, and then he was like, oh, no, wait, I'm not actually the son, this is just her memories, and then he's like, okay, I found the dad, and then he goes through all that stuff, and then I'm just like, don't die on the steps outside.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like him, and then also Caesar. They get stabbed on their sides or something, and then it's like, no.
Parallelism.
Well, actually, that it is kind of similar to what happens to, I guess, the quote-unquote villain of the original.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Like, again, there's the whole like monologue in the rain. You've probably seen to some degree before, and so I think it's supposed to kind of be mirroring that because it's like he's like in the snow, right?
Yeah.
But Yeah.
Oh wait, there was some theming that I wanted to talk about, but I don't remember what it was. It was when Deckard was again in the water room, and the business guy was basically kind of insinuating, like, because Rachel was a replica, like, do you know that, like, her feelings were real? Right? And it kind of reminded me of, like, you know, when you are in, like, a relationship with someone, you do not know 100% exactly what they truly believe. And so it's like there is this kind of, like, sometimes you get this, like, nagging feeling of, like, do they actually, you know, love me, or are they just, like, saying they do? Right? And even if, again, like, there's absolutely no problem in the relationship at all, there's no reason to think that is, like, a thought that sometimes enters your head. Right? And so it kind of reminded me of that, and I was just like, oh. But yeah, there's that, and then I feel like there was something else, but I can't remember. I don't know. I feel like this is kind of hard to talk about, but
it is a lot because it's kind of dense and it is kind of slow, but it wasn't slow in the way where it's like a bad kind of slow. I think it had to slow down, or you won't know what's happening.
That, and then also, again, like, very atmosphere in terms of visuals and music and stuff. So and again, like, compared to the original, I found the story kind of more interesting to follow. So yeah, I'm just like trying to think, like, how do I, like, I'm trying, okay, in my head I'm like, the last movie we saw was It.
Yeah.
Very different movie.
Very, very different rated R movie.
Right, but I'm like, which one do I like more?
Oh yeah, because they're so different.
They're so different, and I like them for completely different reasons. Right?
This is definitely less on the hilarious side.
Right, exactly. You know, so I'm like, but which do I like more? Like, which would I want to see again? You know, and I don't know. I'm really gonna have to think about this for a while before I can place in a spot. Again, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be in the like category. I wouldn't say like a lot, because again, there are some moments where it's a little dull, a little bit. It's not like bad, but it's just like, you know, there's kind of moments where you're just like, okay, now what, right? And again, I wouldn't say like I was super invested in like the characters, or in like most of the characters, but definitely higher-ish in like. But again, I'm not sure exactly. It kind of reminds me of like a more stylized and a bit better done Oblivion.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm trying to think, which one was that the one
Tom
with
Cruise.
like the wife that was treated really badly?
Yeah. I think.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I remember now.
But like,
you
know, it's kind of similar in like tone and presentation, but
yeah,
it's better.
I would
it's
definitely
done
say I
better.
liked this better than.
Yeah, I mean, I like Oblivion, but yeah, I like this is better. Maybe it's also just more visually interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Is there else to say? So I feel like there is like a lot more to say, but at the same time I don't know what to say. So
I guess that's all.
What a brilliant commentary. It's so worth our time.
I mean, I guess like there weren't any blatant problems.
No.
So there's nothing to talk about in that regard. And then I guess it's like there wasn't anything besides like the visuals and the sound that was like completely outstanding. So it's like in that middle ground where it is hard to talk about because it's otherwise very either just standard good or like fine or you know, it's just hard to pinpoint something that doesn't stand out, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, and
So.
I feel a little bad because again, I know people like absolutely love this, just like they absolutely love the original, and I don't. Again, I like both. I like this one more, but I can understand if someone really really likes this though. If they like really get engrossed in like the environments and that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, well, is that it?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I can't really think of anything
like
else.
the third time we've mentioned
Yeah. Well, the next movie is again very different.
Yep.
I've heard some things about this, and I'm very curious now to see this.
I guess I'll mention what little I know about this and the actual discussion, because it has nothing to do with the actual plot or anything, but it is just a funny.
Yeah.
A funny.
Yeah, I know.
For you guys.
So we'll see how this goes. I have pretty high hopes, so
I don't remember what the next movie is, but I guess I'll also find out.
well,
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.